is checking for Tefillin and Mezuzah so important? Now, let me start by taking a Mezuzah scroll, a Mezuzah parchment. On one side, you'll see the parsha of Shema and B'hoyim Shemaya. On the opposite side, you'll see written one of the names of Hashem, which is the name Shakai, Shin Daled Yud. Now, what is the meaning of the Shem? The Zohar HaKodesh brings something very interesting about the Shem.
The Zohar brings that Moshe Rabbeinu, who often used to come down from Shemayim to learn Torah with Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, was once discussing the subject of this Shem Shin Daled Yud, and he explained that the Shadim and Mazikim, the evil forces, are very afraid of the Shem which is written on the Mezuzah, because this Shem is composed of the word Shed, which are the letters Shin and Daled, and then the letter Yud is added onto it. This letter Yud is like a chain and a lock on the Shadim, that they shouldn't be able to harm us, and when they see this Shem, the Shadim all flee in fright. And the Zohar continues that the same analogy goes for Tefillin. The Retzuas, the straps of the Tefillin, which have the Kesharim, the knots, which resemble the letters Shin, Daled, and Yud, they're like ropes which tie the Shadim and Mazikim so that they're powerless to harm us. But the Zohar asks a very good question. If the Shadim, the Mazikim, and all evil forces are so terrified of the Shem Shakai, then why is the whole Mezuzah necessary? Just write 3 letters, Shin, Daled, and Yud, and that should do the trick. Why write the whole parsha of Shema B'hoyim Shemaya, which is a total of 713 letters, when just 3 letters does the job? And the Zohar answers that without the rest of the Mezuzah, this Shem Shakai is powerless to have any effect. And this is what I'll try briefly to explain. Now, the first thing I would like to explain is why it's so common to find problems with Tefillin and Mezuzahs. Many people don't realize how many conditions must be met before Tefillin and Mezuzahs can actually be considered kosher. A mezuzah has a total of 713 letters, and a pair of tefillin has a total of 3,188 letters. If even one letter is problematic, it's totally invalid. 99% kosher means 100% puzzle. Now, what do I mean when I say one letter is problematic? Well, obviously, if a letter is missing, that would of course be problematic. It would be puzzle. But even if no spelling mistakes were made while being written, this is by far not enough. Each letter of the Aleph base must be written in a specific way, and each letter has numerous laws concerning the way it must be written. For instance, if the Sefer wrote the letter Vav with its leg a little bit shorter than it should be, this can technically become the letter Yud instead, which would render the whole Tefillin or Mezuzah puzzle. You wouldn't even be able to fix it, because Tefillin and Mezuzahs must be written in order. There's no going back to correct the mistake. Another example, if the Sefer wrote the letter Vav with its head a little bit too wide, this could be transformed into the letter Resh. Let's say the Sefer didn't make the letter Resh properly rounded on its upper right corner. This could technically become a Dalet, and the list could go on and on. There are literally hundreds of ways that each letter of the Aleph base can lose its proper form if the Sefer is not properly experienced in his work. Now suppose the Sefer did indeed form all of the letters properly, but after he finally finishes writing, a small drop of ink falls by accident onto a letter. Let's say, for example, ink falls into the letter Daled. This technically becomes now the letter Hey. A Daled with a drop of ink in the middle resembles the letter Hey. The Sefer cannot simply scratch away this extra ink in order to restore the letter to its proper form. This is forbidden due to the halacha of chok teiches, which means that each and every letter must be formed through the specific act of writing and not through erasing or scratching. As mentioned before, the Sefer cannot erase the entire letter and then rewrite it again, since Tefillin and Mezuzahs must be written in order. The Sefer must sacrifice many long hard working hours and put the Tefillin or Mezuzahs he wrote into Geniza, into Shemis. The halachas of chok teiches are one of the most common as well as one of the most complicated that a Sefer must deal with on a daily basis. Now suppose the Sefer had siyata d'shmaya and finally finished writing the Tefillin or Mezuzah. He checked it over a few times to make sure everything is just right, and he sells them to the customer. This still does not guarantee that there will never be any problem with them. A common misconception exists regarding the nature of checking Tefillin and Mezuzahs. Many people think that they must be checked in order to make sure that no letters are missing. This is not the case. Tefillin and mezuzahs do not generally have to be checked because a letter or a word might be missing. This type of problem would show that they were never kosher to begin with. This is not the reason why they should be checked every few years, because even though they were originally known to be of top quality, nevertheless time can take its toll on them, as I'll explain shortly. However, the fact remains that many tefillin and mezuzahs were indeed never kosher to begin with. The reasons for this are simple. The sofer could have assumed that they were already properly checked while they actually weren't. The sofer could have simply overlooked certain problems. The sofer could have simply not have been experienced enough and didn't know how to write certain letters properly. In any case, the fact remains that a large percentage of tefillin and mezuzahs had originally serious problems with them which should have never been sold to begin with. Now let's assume that you bought the most mahudr, top quality tefillin and mezuzahs. It still needs maintenance, just like everything else in life that needs maintenance. Let's use the analogy of a car. You might have bought a new car in excellent condition. It'll still need an occasional oil change, an occasional flat tire fixed, and so on. You might have bought a new house in the best condition. Eventually, the occasional leaking pipe will have to be taken care of, or the boiler might need fixing, and so on. Now you might wonder, what could possibly go wrong later on? The answer is many things can happen. The number one most common problem is that gradually time starts taking its toll on them, and the letters start cracking because often the ink after many years doesn't hold very well on the parchment anymore. Another common problem is when the letters are connected to each other. This is more likely to happen on outdoor mezuzahs where rain could get in, causing the ink to run, or on tefillin, which are frequently left in a car in the summer where the extreme heat starts taking its toll. Both scenarios, letters cracking or letters touching, would render them puzzle. Another problem which can occur is when after many years the black ink color of the letter starts fading, turning to red or yellow, which is also a serious problem. If we're talking about tefillin, a very common problem, which everyone can see for themselves, are when the ritzuas, the straps, are not properly black. Walk into any Beis Medrash in the middle of Shachris, and you'll see how many people have the ritzuas totally worn out. All that needs to be done is to have them repainted, but many people don't realize that ritzuas which are not properly black are puzzle. I've just mentioned here the most common problems found, but there are many countless problems which can arise, which we won't elaborate on right now. The point is that tefillin and mezuzahs, as much as they need to be originally of high quality, they need maintenance too. Now often when I speak to people about high quality versus low quality, they get confused. What's the difference between a high quality mezuzah and a low quality mezuzah? They both have the same words written in them. Why does one cost $50 while the other costs $100? The best way to answer this question is again to use the example of a car. Suppose it's now middle of the summer, it's very hot and humid, it's almost 100 degrees outside, and you have to travel from the city to the mountains. You have the choice of traveling with a 1979 station wagon without air conditioning, or you can travel with a 2011 Mercedes. Both will definitely lead you to your destination. Now, is there any difference between them? The answer is yes. The quality of the ride is the difference. Now we need to understand the basic difference between the mitzvahs of tefillin and mezuzahs and all other mitzvahs. The Bach and Shulchan Aruch explains the difference. When a person is a Shomer Shabbos, he is of course rewarded for it, especially if it wasn't easy for him to do so. He had Mesiras Nefesh for Shmira Shabbos. If a person shakes the Arba Minim on Sukkos, he is rewarded for it, especially if he had to pay a high price for them. If a person lights Hanukkah candles or hears the reading of the Megillah on Purim, he is rewarded for it, and the same goes for all other mitzvahs. But a person doesn't benefit from the mitzvahs themselves. However, the mitzvah of mezuzah is different, where the person benefits from the actual performance of the mitzvah, besides the reward which is given for this mitzvah, just like for all other mitzvahs, because this mitzvah has a unique purpose of protecting a person. Now, in order to have technically fulfilled mitzvahs, tefillin and mezuzah, just like any of the other tayag mitzvahs, it would be enough just to write the letters so that they're kosher al pi halacha, just like the 1979 station wagon will definitely take you to your destination in the mountains. But to offer the proper protection for a person, this would not be enough. Let's give an example. I'll quote what the Poskim write in the name of Reb Chaim Lital, the famous great Talmud of the Ari HaKadosh. He says, the word shatnez, meaning the letters shin, ayin, tes, nun, and zayin, form the word Satan Az. These are the names of two great harmful forces. The word Getz, meaning the letters Gimel and Sadik, is also the name of an evil force. Therefore, Tagen, which are crown-like additions, are added to the top of these 7 letters, because these Tagen are like swords and spears, which destroy these harmful forces. Now the preferable way to make these tagin are for them to resemble three small zayins. A simple explanation can be given, since the letter zayin alludes to the word kalei zayin, which literally means armor, and this is exactly what's needed here to protect us. The Sifrei Kabbalah explain a deeper meaning to these zayin-like tagin according to Kabbalah. Many Tefillin and Mezuzahs, especially the cheaper ones, have these tagin missing, or they're not properly connected to the letters. Now technically you can say that the Mezuzah is kosher without these tagin, but if someone wants to have the proper protection which Tefillin and Mezuzahs have to offer, he's missing a major protection factor. Let me give another example. Everyone knows how the letter Dalet should look like. It has the top part with its leg coming down on the right side. Now suppose the Sofer wrote the leg, instead of slightly tilting to the right, he made it slightly tilting to the left. Would this be a problem? Strictly halachically speaking, no. No one could say that it's possible because of such a minor detail. But the Gemara explains, why does the letter Dalet come after the letter Gimel in the Aleph base? And the Gemara answers, because the letter Gimel is Merames. It alludes to the Goimel Chesed, which means the richer person, or the person who has the means to help other people, which helps the Dalet, which alludes to the Dal, which means a poor person. Therefore the Dalet should have its foot slanted to the right towards the Gimel, in order for the Dalet to receive help from the Gimel. Now by slanting the leg of the Dalet to the left instead of to the right, this can be causing this person to complicate any help coming his way. This again is just one of many examples showing that even the smallest detail can be important, and that just merely to be yotze the mitzvah falls short of having the proper shmirah.
This was just a very general explanation for people to start taking the subject seriously. I witnessed myself many interesting stories of people with various problems in their life who came to have their Tefillin and Mezuzahs checked, only to reveal serious problems with them. You can read many of these stories on my website. The many problems and hardships that people have today in their lives are unfortunately very real, and the connection that many problems can have with the condition of the Tefillin and Mezuzahs are also very real. The least we can do is to make sure that our protection plan, our Tefillin and Mezuzahs, are perfectly in order.